Filming flying scenes in movies is a lot harder than you think. From taking off, to mid-air action scenes, to free-falling, and even landing, every sequence involves a different setup. But how exactly do they do it? And what kind of physical training is involved? Let's find out. Welcome to Xplained. Seeing a character fly in a movie isn't extraordinary. It's become so common, superhero films would be incomplete without it. While we don't give these scenes a second thought, the amount of effort that goes into making them is enormous. The way it's filmed has drastically changed over the years as well. Back in 1948, showing Kirk Allen's Superman fly was pretty straightforward.
Up, and away!
He jumped in the air, at which point he became an animated character and flew away. Then came George Reeves' Superman, and these flying scenes looked equally clumsy. George literally used a bouncing board, usually hidden behind props in the room, to add a little more spring to his takeoff. To look like he was in flight, he'd lie flat on a base plate. Sometimes he'd be suspended awkwardly by a harness. And to land, he'd climb up a short ladder hidden outside the frame and jump down on a hidden foam mattress. These low-budget devices and techniques paved the way for non-superhero characters to fly, like Mary Poppins in the 60s. Fast forward to the 2000s, and things are very different.
3, 2, 1, go!
Flying devices have advanced significantly, and to help us understand them better, we spoke to one of the best stuntmen in all of Hollywood.
My name is Bobby Holland-Hanton. I'm a professional stunt performer. I've been Chris Hemsworth's stunt double now for 11 years. I think I've done 15 or 16 movies with Chris.
Number 1, wires. Whether it's Superman or Harry Potter, wires are still used to film people flying because of its versatility. It's used for takeoff scenes, to show being violently pulled up and backwards, suspension in mid-air scenes, and even with crash landings. Basically, actors wear flying harnesses attached to wires. These wires are attached to rigs, and then the actors are lifted up by cranes. Where you lift an actor up from is called a pickup point, and it changes depending on the action being filmed and helps the flying look more real.
3, 2, 1, go! Cut that.
I've been thrown around a lot on wires. We do a lot of ratchet pulls, which is basically attaching the cable to the back of your harness or wherever it may be, from the front or the side or wherever it is. The wire, the tech will be run through pulleys that go across the stage to the pull station where there might be 2, 3 other rigging guys, and basically jump on a rope and pull, and it basically pulls you wherever you're going to go. And then there's also that came in a little bit later is hydraulic rams, which is basically exactly the same system, but a rigging guy will literally 3, 2, 1 and presses the button, and it's a lot faster, a lot stronger. You can get a lot more height, and then you go further onto that, and you've got winch systems, which are like electronic on a computer where they can fly you around everywhere.
A straight and vertical power liftoff from the ground isn't very complicated. But taking off at an angle, like in this scene from WandaVision, is far more complex. Here, the pickup points are on her hip and she's connected to a spreader bar. So she's being lifted up and pulled forward at an angle by a pre-programmed winch at the same time. To get a wide flight shot like this back in the days was next to impossible. Have a look at these behind-the-scenes clips of when they first tried to make Superman fly. They literally shot a dummy out of an air motor. Then, they experimented with a fake Superman doll plane. And when they finally started using hidden wires more effectively, it was a coordination nightmare for the crew.
Here's a test for a shot in Superman 2. We had to have a number of actors up on the wires. It's a complicated matter to coordinate all the characters together. The cameraman was actually flying with them to give the shot the same sense of movement in the air.
The harnesses used these days are also safer and more comfortable. But in Mary Poppins, Julie Andrews literally wore an uncomfortable steel-plated harness under her dress and was suspended for hours. The next flying system is the parallelogram. Parallelograms are mostly used to show characters like Doc Ock taking off and landing smoothly on the ground. The actor is strapped to a standing platform, and counterbalancing moves it up and down while the legs stay completely still. Standing on a parallelogram is a lot easier, but it can't be used for everything. The next device is called the tuning fork. This setup is not only simple, but it's great for mid-air choreography. In this setup, actors are attached to the tuning fork from their hips, and then they're pushed around. Actors have more flexibility to move around. They can stop flying in mid-air and float, or even change direction on the spot.
Tuning forks, again, they're amazing for what you need that for. There's lots of times where I've had to be, in Thor, for example, and be in a flying position for Thor. But also try and be steady. So sometimes if you're on a wire for that, they might have to put 2 wires on you to balance you out. But sometimes it can be not quite as smooth as the tuning fork. In Thor Love and Thunder, while we were shooting in Australia, there was a scene that we had where Thor and Gore come flying together. It was a big wide shot, lock off camera, and they come flying together. I was on a ratchet system, and the Gore stunt double was on the tuning fork. So then when we met in the middle, we hit and I could push Gore that way.
When coordination gets more complex than this, a device called the RoboMoco arm comes in. The RoboMoco arm is especially useful when you want to show an actor tumbling while free-falling through the sky. Basically, an actor is attached from the hips to a robotic arm, and the arm is pre-programmed with a moving sequence. Working with this repetitive action also helps actors nail their mid-air performance. The other advantage is the arm can work in sync with a motion-controlled camera. And it's been used in movies like Peter Pan and A Wrinkle in Time. To make free-falling and skydiving look more natural, filmmakers sometimes use vertical wind tunnels. These are just like indoor skydive tunnels, except they're open air. These tunnels are broad and huge. They're open at the top so you can clearly see the sky above, and the bottom and the sides can be covered in a chroma screen. Using a vertical wind tunnel makes the free-falling scenes in movies like Infinite look more authentic. And fun fact, even Black Widow used a vertical wind tunnel for certain shots in addition to using a wire setup and the RoboMoco arm. The flying systems used in film production are insane, but they'd be incomplete without the use of visual effects. Like everything else, it's advanced in leaps and bounds. Walt Disney's Mary Poppins was perhaps one of the first movies to merge animated effects with real filming. To make Christopher Reeve's Superman look like he was flying against a city skyline, they used front projection. And the secret to it was using a double-sided mirror and a special beaded screen that could reflect light 1,000 times its original intensity in the same direction it receives it.
A projector that's projecting a background scene, let's say typically the desert or metropolis to go behind Superman, is then bounced off the mirror surface onto a 3Ms beaded screen where it is greatly intensified. The light is then returned directly through the transparent side of the mirror into the camera lens.
Then they had to make it look like Superman was moving towards or away from the camera. So VFX director Zoran Perisic synchronized zoom lens in the projector and camera. But to sell it more, they had to make Superman's cape flutter. Large fans weren't enough and had its limitations, so they built a cape fluttering device made out of thin poles and a motor that made the cape move. With the advancements of visual effects, actors today don't even need to wear a cape at all. The effects team just added on post-production. In fact, if a flying scene is too complex, The effects teams can just literally create digital doubles where the actors don't need to be present at all. The final secret to creating the perfect flying scene lies with the actors themselves. Whether it's taking off, moving for an action scene, or even landing, what actors do with their body makes it look graceful and smooth. But this means actors have to train hard. Having upper body and core strength is most important. Balance workouts are also needed, so you have to know how to control your posture and not look sloppy. Agility is next, because each character has their own signature fighting style. Lastly, having good lower body strength helps your leg movements look more natural while flying and prepares you to land safely without hurting yourself. What's your favorite part about a flying scene in a movie? Tell us about it in the comments, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Xplained.